In the frozen darkness of the Canadian Arctic, two ghost ships waited, perfectly preserved, perfectly silent. In 2014 and 2016, explorers finally found them. HMS Erebus, HMS Terror, sitting upright on the seabed, cabins still recognizable, plates, bottles, even tables still in place. But there was something missing. The men. All 129 of them. No bodies, no diaries, no neat explanation. Just a trail of scattered bones on land. Bones scarred with cut marks. Evidence that, in the end, some of the finest men of the Royal Navy had eaten each other. This is the disturbing truth of the Franklin expedition, a mission of pride that became one of history's darkest survival stories. To understand why this happened, you have to start with the confidence. Sir John Franklin was not some amateur. He was a veteran of the Arctic, a man who had already mapped huge stretches of the Canadian North. He was known as the man who ate his boots. After a previous expedition, was forced to survive on leather and lichen. That should have been a warning. Instead, it became a legend. In 1845, the British Admiralty decided to solve one of the last great problems of geography. The Northwest Passage, a sea route over the top of Canada that, in theory, would connect Europe to Asia. They chose Franklin to lead the mission. He was 59, older than most explorers, but he had something the Admiralty trusted: experience and a reputation as a steady, stubborn leader. They gave him two ships, not just any ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, veterans of Antarctic exploration, reinforced with thick oak and iron, outfitted with steam engines, converted railway locomotives that could turn propellers when the sails were useless. On board, they packed luxury for the time, a library of over 1,000 books, fine silverware, china plates, heavy curtains, the kind of comforts meant to remind officers of home, even at the edge of the world. Most importantly, they carried food, 3 years' worth, tinned meat, soup, vegetables and biscuits, enough on paper to feed all 129 officers and men until they broke through the passage and sailed triumphantly into the Pacific. This was the Victorian era's version of a high-tech space mission. Steam power, iron hulls, scientific instruments, magnetic observatories. Some historians call it the Titanic of the 1840s. Everything that money, engineering, and an empire could buy pointed straight at the Arctic. What could possibly go wrong? The ships sailed from England in May 1845. They were seen that summer by whaling vessels in Baffin Bay. Calm, orderly, the last time Europeans saw them alive. From there, the trail goes cold. We only know the rest from a handful of clues. A note in a stone cairn, Inuit testimony, bones, and now the wrecks. We know they spent their first winter in the Arctic at Beechey Island in 1845 to 46. 3 men died there and were buried in the frozen ground. No one back home was alarmed. Men died on long voyages. It was expected. In the summer of 1846, the expedition sailed south. They passed down Peel Sound. Then the ice closed in. By September, both Erebus and Terror were trapped in Victoria Strait, just off King William Island. The ice was thick, solid. The ships could not move. Normally this was annoying, not fatal. Ships overwintered in Arctic ice all the time. You waited for summer. The ice thinned. The wind changed. You sailed on. But in 1847, summer came, and the ice did not let go. The men were stuck in an endless plain of white. No open water, no escape route. Arctic winter is not just cold, it is dark. Weeks of darkness that feel like they'll never end. The sun dips below the horizon and does not return. Imagine 129 men, crammed into two ships, the wood creaking, the ice grinding along the hull, the air thick with smoke, sweat, and fear. On June 11th, 1847, Sir John Franklin died. We don't know exactly how. Illness, most likely. Maybe already weakened by what was quietly poisoning all of them. He never saw the next summer. He never saw the decision that would doom his men. For a long time, people thought the Franklin expedition died of simple things. Cold, starvation, scurvy. All of that was true, but there was something else working against them, something inside their own bodies. In the 1980s and 90s, scientists exhumed some of the bodies buried at Beechey Island. They were incredibly well preserved by the permafrost. Autopsies revealed something shocking. Their bones and tissues were packed with lead. Not just a little. Dangerously high levels. Where did it come from? The most famous theory points to the canned food. The tins were sealed with thick lead solder, cut open with knives, reheated and eaten almost every day for months. Lead can leach into food, slowly, invisible, deadly. Lead poisoning doesn't always kill quickly. It attacks the nervous system. It causes abdominal pain, weakness, confusion, mood changes, paranoia. It can make you impulsive. It can make you irrational. Some researchers now argue the ship's new water systems may have been just as dangerous. The steam engines needed huge amounts of fresh water, so the ships were fitted with experimental desalination systems. Systems that, with the materials of the time, could have produced water heavily contaminated with lead. In other words, every sip, every meal, might have been feeding poison into their blood. To be fair, not everyone agrees that lead alone doomed the expedition. It was likely one factor among many, but by the time the men were trapped in the ice off King William Island, their bodies were already under attack. Their minds, too. They weren't just cold and hungry, they were slowly going mad. The key piece of evidence in this entire story is a single document, a note, found in 1859 inside a stone cairn on King William Island. The first part of the note is calm and routine. Dated May 1847, it says the ships are locked in ice, but all well, all well. Then, in the margins, a second message, added almost a year later, April 25th, 1848. The tone is very different. It says the ships Erebus and Terror have been trapped in the ice for 1 year and 7 months. It says that 24 men are dead, 9 of them officers, including Sir John Franklin himself. It says the survivors have decided to abandon the ships and begin a march south toward the Back River on the Canadian mainland. Think about that. You have 2 of the strongest ice-reinforced ships in the Royal Navy. You have shelter, heat, supplies, and yet things have gotten so bad, you decide your best chance of survival is to walk hundreds of kilometers across shifting sea ice and barren land, dragging sledges with what little you can carry. This is the moment where the story turns from trapped expedition into something much darker. We know some of what happened next, not from British records, but from the Inuit. Inuit hunters later described seeing starving white men dragging boats over the ice, skeleton thin, desperate. Some died where they fell, others made it a little further. Search expeditions in the 1850s found the evidence. A boat on a sledge, 2 skeletons inside, surrounded by supplies that seem, today, almost insane. Silk handkerchiefs, scented soap, boots and slippers, curtains, expensive silverware, even a copy of the novel The Vicar of Wakefield. These men were starving, freezing, but still lugging heavy, useless symbols of Victorian comfort and class across the ice. Was it denial, habit, or the creeping irrationality of poisoned minds? Later, on the southern coast of King William Island, searchers found more bones. Some were cracked open, others had very specific cut marks. In the 19th century, this evidence was brushed aside. Victorian Britain did not want to believe that its heroes could ever do such a thing. But modern forensic analysis is blunt. Cut marks on roughly a quarter of the examined remains match butchery patterns. Bones appear to have been broken to extract marrow. Exactly what you would expect if, in the final, desperate stages, the survivors had turned to cannibalism, cold, starvation, disease, lead poisoning. In the end, the Franklin expedition wasn't just beaten by the ice, it was eaten alive from all sides. And so we come back to the wrecks. More than 160 years after the expedition vanished, Inuit oral histories helped guide modern explorers to the truth. In 2014, HMS Erebus was found in the cold, shallow waters near King William Island. In 2016, HMS Terror was found in Terror Bay, eerily intact. Inside, plates still sit on shelves. Glass bottles rest where sailors left them. Doors and drawers remain closed. It feels like the crew should still be there, sleeping, working, laughing, but they're not. The ship survived the Arctic. The men did not. That contrast is the core of this story. Two of the strongest ships of their age, cutting-edge Victorian technology, steam engines, ironclad hulls, thousands of carefully planned meals, and yet, against the Arctic, none of it was enough. In the end, nature didn't have to fight them. It just had to wait. Wait for the ice not to melt. Wait for the darkness to settle in. Wait for the poison in their food and water to do its slow, silent work. Then it erased them, one by one. Today, we like to believe that technology can solve everything, that with enough planning, enough gear, enough confidence, we can conquer any environment. The Franklin expedition is a cold reminder that the opposite can happen, that overconfidence can kill faster than ignorance, that you can bring a library, a dining room, and an engines to the edge of the world, and still die on the ice dragging silver forks across a frozen wasteland. So here's the question. Was this tragedy caused by bad luck, bad planning, poisoned food and poisoned minds? Or was it something else? A kind of punishment for the arrogance of believing that empire and machinery could tame a place like the Arctic. You've heard the evidence, the wrecks, the note in the cairn, the cut marks on the bones. Now you decide. What do you think really doomed the Franklin expedition? Tell me in the comments. Because somewhere, under the ice and the waves, HMS Erebus and Terror are still waiting, and they're not giving up all their secrets. Not yet.